Good day, everybody. My name is Leslie Borey, and this is the Brantford News. Today is June 14th, and James Sears was just not convicted, but his appeal was not held up in his first appeal after being convicted of hate crimes or hate speech for his satirical work in the newspaper Your Ward News. James came up with, and also, pardon me, Leroy St.Germaine, the owner of the newspaper, he was, if you're not familiar with the case, I always assume people are up to date on this. James Sears was the editor, and Leroy St.Germaine was the owner of Your Ward News, a newspaper out of Toronto. It was a satirical newspaper where they had a lot of cartoons and things like that in it, and it was a pretty rough newspaper. It had a lot of vulgar knuckle-dragging comedy. It was a funny newspaper. Very intelligent people came up with these ideas, but they presented them in a really lowbrow kind of form. It was a really interesting publication. Anyhow, the things they wrote, according to some Zionist terror groups, create hate against Jewish people. But I think that throwing people in cages for expressing their views in Canada, that would create more hate than anything else. But anyhow, that's the case. Okay, that's the background. These guys were sentenced to a year each. James got a year in jail. That was his sentence, but he was out on appeal after spending 6 days in jail. Leroy St.Germaine got a year of house arrest, which he almost served all of, I think, before the COVID hit. Anyway, their appeal was granted, so they were both out of jail at some point. And they were just waiting to see what the outcome of this was before they have to go back if they lost. So the judge dismissed all of James's reasons, and he had a long list of reasons why he shouldn't be convicted of hate speech, and he cited a lot of things that maybe his lawyer and the judge did, and I agree with a few of the things that James mentioned. So the judge dismissed all of these things, okay? So I watched this, and you knew it wasn't going really well for James. But then at the end, was his name Michael Bernstein, I think it is, the Crown prosecutor, I believe. He said that Mr. Sears should go to jail immediately, and he was pushing for that, like go right now, like he just lost the case, go. Although James has a 2:30 appeal waiting to go. Basically, he has to wait till the judge signs off on this case, and then his appeal can proceed at 2:30 this afternoon, and he'll see whether or not he has to go back to jail while he waits for his second appeal. All right. So anyhow, the judge was told that there's an option for James not to go to jail right away by Mr. Ian McQuaig, a lawyer for Leroy St.Germaine, in regards to Mr. Bernstein wanting Mr. Sears to go immediately. But the judge would have to sign the papers finalizing this appeal, or this dismissal of this appeal, because he did dismiss the appeal. James was supposed to go back to jail. So the judge decided that even though he could allow James to have a couple weeks off that he requested before he goes to jail to prepare his family for him leaving, and he's got an autistic son who needs someone to be around, I guess. So that would take a little while. But anyhow, the judge decided that James's next appeal can't proceed until he signs off. So what he did was, instead of sending James to jail at 4 o'clock, he said 4:30. After he signs it, Mr. Bernstein wanted to see James in there no later than 4 o'clock. And James said that his appeal might not be over, he might not be able to make it to jail by 4:30. So the judge said, the next judge, he'll tell you when you should go to jail then. It's in his hands now. All right, so that's an update on what happened. Now, there was a little surprise ending to all this. Now, I want to get this right. Now, James asked permission to ask a question, and the judge said to him, you can ask it. I think I don't think he said he doesn't have to answer it, but he says you can ask it. And James asked the judge, about a fundraiser, if I'm not mistaken, about a fundraiser the judge had for anti-Semitism, all right? And I believe it has something to do with his wife filming a movie about the Holocaust. So, I don't know. That doesn't seem like that judge would be all that impartial when he's dealing with someone who is accused of, say, anti-Semitism or hatred against Jews, which is a different deal there, since Palestinians are Semites too. And the original Jews in Israel, yeah, they were Semites, but the ones from Europe that took over Israel, no, they're not Semites, they look like me. Anyhow, so that doesn't seem too right to me. I mean, our justice systems just seem so corrupt. You know, I'm not a legal eagle or anything like that. Like, I don't, I want to be a lawmaker, but my laws would be a lot more simpler than, a lot simpler than the ones that we have now. You know, this web of bullshit that we have is amazing. But anyway, there's a measure of justice that a Canadian should expect, and going to jail for sarcasm, is wrong by our Western standards, and somehow other standards have crept into our society and are pervading right now. All right, folks? If you notice the I don't want to pick out one race, but basically people are trying to put races against each other, if you notice the news lately. And James' publication was against these Marxists, and Marxism does that. Marxism puts people against each other for many reasons. It doesn't just have to be skin color, it could be all kinds of stuff. And that helps the commies move into a soft country that isn't united in defense. All right, so that's what Marxism does. That's its prime goal, it seems. They switched over from rich versus poor to everything versus anything. It's crazy. But Mr. Sears' publication kind of shed a light on those things, and its connection to a certain religion there. But not even he says that just because your ma was from a certain religion that you're a bad person. So this, I feel, has been politically motivated, and they're trying to harm the character or the image of Mr. Sears and Mr. St.Germaine and all this. All right, to further a cause. All right, guys. Anyway, that's the story. So Mr. Sears basically asked the judge if he held a fundraiser for anti-Semitism, and I think they showed the movie his wife made. I believe that's how this unfolded about the Holocaust, right? So again, is this person the right person to appeal Mr. Sears' case? And I don't think it is. If you look down the line, there have been some really weird things in this case. Okay, they've had Mr. Sears mentioned to me that some Crown prosecutors who normally don't operate, in a certain circle seem to show up for his case, and I don't know though, but that's what Mr. Sears said. I believe him. All right, guys. So you guys have a good day, and it's another example of possible corruption in our country. I believe it is. I believe this is a corrupt deal. And Mr. Sears and Mr. St.Germaine shouldn't be going to jail for this, with so many people committing crimes in this country at the highest levels. We'll see what we can do about that. I've got a video that I promised to make, and it's coming soon. All right, guys. Have a very good day, Canadians. Bye. Keep your heads up.